416-986-8903. If you do watch the show, thank you today to Chubwith Filordi for helping out in the video department. Many, many thanks.
Great guy.
It is a guy. Mm-hmm. Oh, Chubwith sounded feminine to me, so that's my fault. Tomorrow on the show, the great Tony Danza will join me. Angela, Mona. He is doing he's got a hit show. He's on the road. It's called Standards and Stories. And he's playing the Hoover Auditorium in Lakeside, Ohio. That's out on that's out there. It's like out on by Sandusky, I think.
No, I think that's at Playhouse Square.
The Hoover Auditorium?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, it's Playhouse Square, right?
Well, no, Lakeside, Ohio. The Hoover Auditorium is it? Yeah.
Is that an extension of it?
No, no, it's out there. July 23rd is when it will come. It's his one Ohio date. He's only doing a handful of dates, so it's kind of in our backyard, but close enough where I decided, yes, I'd like to talk to Tony Danza.
It's actually a really beautiful theater.
It's out on Marblehead, right?
Yeah.
It's so it's him. He's got a band. So he's doing a little storytelling, a little soft shoe, a little ukulele. Maybe he's got a couple of taxi stories. Maybe Alyssa Milano. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Tony Danza's never been on this show over the years, so I'm excited to talk to him. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't. So that's tomorrow.
So who do you think was the boss, him or Angela?
I think Mona was the boss. Quite frankly, she was the one that was running everything.
Was she?
Yeah,
like she was just...
from behind the scenes, pay no attention.
I don't think she was doing that
Catherine
at all.
Hellman. Well, she was kind of out.
I think she was just out having
laid
fun.
too, yeah.
Yeah, she's having she was one of them late-in-life hoes.
Mm-hmm. Travis points out, make sure Mary buys those scratch-offs in Michigan since she's banned in Ohio.
I wouldn't buy
You'll
them.
have to cross the border there.
Someone else would have to buy them. I'm 17 days without a bet, baby.
She's only 17. Hey.
But you can't go another week.
I bet I can, because I'm saving my money. Why?
You know what they...
Oh, damn it!
So dumb. So dumb.
Pay up!
Start the counter back to zero. We blew it. I might as well go to the casino now.
You might as well.
You can't.
Pittsburgh, here I come.
There you go. You broke the seal.
Oh, that's funny.
You're dumb.
I'm dumb.
I'm dumber.
17 days.
Uh-huh.
All right.
I'm doing it.
And you've banned yourself for a year.
A year.
Yep.
Yes.
No casinos, no scratch-offs, no gambling of any kind.
Yep.
Does that include bingo?
That includes bingo.
You can't even go to bingo.
I told my mom, don't even ask me. Because I want to say yes. They don't ban you from bingo halls. I don't think they can do that unless you fist fight somebody or something.
Right. Well, there's a lot of those. No shortage of fistfights among the old ladies in bingo halls.
So slow though.
Oh, God.
How do you even break a jaw that slow?
Well, the jaws are so breakable, you don't have to hit them very hard. They're like pretzels.
The osteoporosis does most of the work.
Yeah, right. Except when you think you're going to crack a hip and it's titanium. Damn it.
Ouch. Alan, have you wore the George Carlin document? Of course. I've been waiting weeks for it. Watched it all in one sitting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's 3 hours or 4 hours. It's 2 episodes on HBO Max. Judd Apatow directed this.
How was it?
It's great.
It's great. I thought that the only thing I thought was strange about it was the dearth of comedians that they had to talk about him. It was like Rock, Patton Oswalt, Paul Provenza, Seinfeld,
Bill Burr.
Who did you want it to be?
I don't know. It wasn't that I had anybody in mind. I guess I thought that there were going to be a lot more comedians talking about him. It's mostly like archival footage. It's a lot of Kelly Carlin. It's a lot of talking. Maybe he was. It was very similar to when Apatow did the Gary Shandling thing. Mm-hmm. Very similar in that there's a lot of those guys both kept copious notes. Obviously, they just kept everything they ever wrote. So,
and so much.
But
of
it was fantastic.
It was very well done, and also they open up about some of the tumultuous times between him and his wife, and then her getting sober, and
from Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, like it was really that part I hadn't heard much about.
Oh yeah,
because he wasn't a guy that talked about that stuff on stage.
Right.
He never talked about his personal life on stage. That was never who he was.
Talked about his pets, and that was about it.
He wasn't doing confessional comedy like a lot of comics do now. So when you hear all that, and Kelly's sharing these memories that she has from being a pretty small child, but being his kind of confidant while going through that situation with his wife and her mother, that couldn't be easy to open up about.
Which I have to relive.
Yeah.
That's the part of therapy that sucks so much, is we're like, man, I've been putting this stuff away for years, now to do it on camera in front of, and it's got to be weird too when your dad is such a well-loved, well-known, famous person,
Yeah, but his foibles were well-known too. I always thought that was an unfair knock people would make against Kelly Carlin, is there were a lot of people that said, like, your whole thing is like the underpinning of everything you do has to do with like your dad and your mom or whatever. It's like, yeah, well, her dad was George Carlin.
Yeah, right.
It's hard to get away from that.
Yeah, he's their one kid. So, and these are wild stories too.
And people want to hear them.
Yeah.
And she knows how to tell them. Another thing that I noticed just watching this and kind of revisiting some of his specials, because I watched a little bit of his specials after this, was how much of a clapter comedian he is. When he gets into that, like 88 on, where he starts being very political, and if you don't know what clapter comedy is, that's where you're saying something that the crowd's going to agree with. Now, the difference is Carlin was saying things that hadn't been said and was making them funny, but would also get...
And also didn't care if the audience clapped.
Exactly. But they would, because he would make such good points.
Well, you get your own audience.
But it's also one of those things where...
Nobody was like, I'm going to check out this George Carlin guy.
Yeah.
And even if you liked the Carlin from the 80s, that was an interesting thing to me in the course of this documentary, is how he really did kind of fall off in the 80s because he had to redefine who he was, and he was kind of considered out of touch and blah, blah, blah.
Which people really don't talk about him ever falling off. It just seems like it's this continuous ascent where he went from 7 words you can't say on television to you were all diseased, and there was no dip in the middle.
Right.
But there was a pretty decent dip.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're a George Carlin fan, even if you're a casual George Carlin fan, I thought it was a very, very... I wanted more of it at the end, I mean, they could have easily probably made a series out of it. Yeah, there's so many things.
And if there's anybody that can make it longer, it's Judd Apatow.
He knows how.
Yeah. What, this is the one thing he hires an editor for? But yeah, no, I liked it very much. I also watched... this was a bad weekend for Chippendale Rescue Rangers to drop because John Mulaney was getting dragged over Dave Chappelle all weekend, too.
Which I think is weird.
Well, because he had... I'll play some of the audio. Well, no, the audio I have isn't from the show. It's from The Hall, this thing that they both were part of over on Netflix. Speaking of George Carlin.
I can't believe people are still getting dragged over Dave Chappelle. Like, he's not going anywhere.
Well, he had him do a set on one of his shows. Like,
a surprise in Columbus.
Yeah.
So?
Mulaney... Well,
he's
because...
a comedian.
I know he's a comedian, but, trans and queer people were posting on social media like, I like John Mulaney, but I didn't know they felt weird that Dave Chappelle came out because he's doing, a lot of trans jokes or whatever. See, what I didn't like, though, is I read somebody who really had a hard time with this. They refer to Dave Chappelle as a guy who built his career on trans jokes. And I'm like, well, that couldn't be farther from the truth.
Like, mainly crackhead jokes.
Well, but I'd wager there are
slave jokes.
I would wager there are a lot of people who didn't even pay attention to Dave Chappelle before the trans stuff.
Right.
Like Chappelle's show was 20 years ago, right? Yeah. If you're 20 now and you're complaining about Dave Chappelle, you're late to the game. You're just showing up now, and this is why, But a lot of people were complaining that Mulaney had him come out because they were like, if you were a trans or queer person, you were like held hostage at this show having to listen to this.
How long did he do?
Well, no. I'm not discounting that. I mean, that's fine. You can. I mean, you're gay.
I'm just sick of it.
You can. I understand. I'm simply saying that if you're somebody who went to see John Mulaney, and first of all, if you're anywhere in Ohio and you're going to see a comedy tour, you got a 50-50 chance now the Chappelle's going to show up.
Yeah, it's a big name, for sure.
Yeah, it's a big name, like Chris Rock.
He
if he comes to town,
at Wiley's.
He didn't,
but he has before.
Hey, man.
But you're not any less gay or any less trans because you went to a Dave Chappelle show.
They didn't go to it. Their whole point is they didn't sign up for Dave Chappelle.
But what
they
I'm
signed
saying
up for John Mulaney.
But just the narrative is what makes me angry, because the whole point of people trying to cancel Dave Chappelle, it was a transgender that liked his jokes and she committed suicide over it. So it just grinds my gears.
I don't know if that's exactly how it went.
Yeah, you're really paraphrasing.
She was getting dragged because she liked Dave Chappelle, and her community was bullying her, saying that you're fighting against us and you're not what we stand for.
But also, let's be honest. Let's be real about it. Dave Chappelle was also using his friendship with that trans woman to try and diffuse all the criticism. Mm-hmm. There's nothing.
So what? People always do that.
That's fine. I'm just saying that if
they don't. My trans son agrees.
How does does any of this register with your son?
No, he's like, I mean,
he just kind of goes
not
with the
in
flow,
a way that we talk about it, because
Right.
he's got his own problems. Like he's trying to go to college and do all these other things,
Right.
so he's just living his life.
Exactly.
Right.
He's going about his life, and I don't feel sorry for him neither. He's hotter than me. Like, I've been a guy my whole life, and he just comes in this game and takes it. He does.
You better black bag your kid when Poundcake's around.
Oh, I've already made that line in the sand.
He's had the talk with your son about Poundcake.
Yeah, stay away from this guy.
That's right. Always be facing him. Always be facing him. Well, this guy who jumped up on stage and attacked Dave Chappelle, he's been charged with stabbing his roommate. So this was not a guy that had, he said this kid, Isaiah Lee, he's 23, he's got a couple of kids. He said that he attacked Dave Chappelle because he was triggered and that Dave Chappelle should be more sensitive. He said he's
trolling.
Well, but again, being bisexual only has to do with this guy's story in that he jumped up and tried to attack Dave Chappelle. But he also got charged with stabbing his roommate. So it's not like this guy, that was the one issue he had with people. He was like a rapper or something. And he is getting charged with all kinds of stuff because he was charged with stabbing his roommate last year. So it's to do with problems, and I guess Dave Chappelle just whatever. Wrong place, wrong time. But yeah, there were. Anytime I saw John Mulaney trending over the weekend, and I thought it was because he and Andy Samberg did Chippendale Rescue Rangers for Disney Plus, I think, and it's this wild. I was too old for Rescue Rangers, but I know my wife was into it when it was on. And this is
we listen to the original Rescue Rangers theme song because it's pretty good.
Are you joking about that?
I am not joking about that.
It's this was largely a Lonely Island production, and you could really kind of tell. You want the original one?
Yes.
Let me find it here. Rescue Rangers. Was this early 90s? When
yeah,
was
this
Rescue
is early
Rangers?
90s. Like I was kind of aging out of cartoons, but I still had a few years enjoying the Rescue Rangers just because they had fun adventures.
You are recognizing? Yes. Wait for it. Is this a remix of...
No, this is not.
This is the new one. You don't want that.
I don't want the... No. I don't want
Well, where's the original one?
It should just be Rescue Rangers theme song.
Well, hold on. No, because everybody wants to do their remixes now. So trying to find the original one.
Sometimes some crimes
This is that bass.
go slipping through the cracks, but these two gumshoes
That's the original version?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
are picking up the slack. There's no case too big, no case too small. When you need help, just call Chip and Dale's.
No, this is a cover.
I was going to say, this doesn't sound
All
like
right,
the
hold on,
original.
I got it. I'll send it over to you.
Hold on. Maybe I have it here. Opening theme.
Sometimes some crimes
It was only out for 2 years.
slipping through the cracks, but these two
It sounds like the same one.
Yeah, it does sound like it.
are picking up the slack. There's no case too big, no
This is the same song.
Okay, it is.
when you need help, just
It's still good.
Is it?
Like my wife has a little. My wife has for a long time had this like small red, like it looks like a shrunken down duffel bag, and it's Chippendale Rescue Rangers. And I was like, "What is this?" And she's like, it's something from back in the day."
Anyway, Gadget was hot.
Is that the Tiny Mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is largely, I mean, it was kind of, the whole thing's very tongue-in-cheek, and it's also, they took this opportunity to basically, I guess, throw in every intellectual property that Disney owns.
And then
Because
some.
like Doc McStuffins is
Yeah.
in there, and there's all these.
Yeah, they just went crazy with the references.
Yeah, it was wild. So you could watch
Simpsons,
this.
and I think like Rick and Morty had some little nod
Yes.
to them. Just trying to do the same thing they did with Space Jam last year, and that worked out great.
Yeah, the premise of it is that it's kind of a nod to like plastic surgery or rebooting characters, where the premise of it is that there's somebody who's trying to do bootleg knockoff versions of cartoon characters.
Yeah,
so
China.
like China, right? Peter Pan is big and fat, and I forget who does Peter Pan. Oh, Will Arnett, I think.
Yeah.
But it's Andy Samberg and it's John Mulaney. So I think that Mulaney is trending because of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Now, again, it's not in theaters. It's on Disney+. You don't have to worry about a big theater opening weekend anymore. But he was trending because he brought Chappelle out. And I
Now,
guess that pissed a lot of people off.
Before we get off the...
Or some, I shouldn't say a lot of people. The complaints were that the whole, while Chappelle was making trans jokes, I guess, that the whole place was like roaring with laughter. And so people who felt attacked by that were like, yeah, this is a lot of fun when you're looking around and a whole arena is going crazy and over
Yeah.
this guy.
Well, I heard that the trans joke that he made was the guy that attacked me on stage had a gun that identified as a knife.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't hear the
That's
joke.
what somebody had written in something that I read, and it's just like the people that want to be offended are going to be offended.
Yes.
It's I'm very against some of the stuff that Dave has said in his specials, but I still like Dave.
Right.
I
Yeah,
still
you don't
think
have to
he's a
like
funny
every
guy.
joke the guy
Yeah,
does.
I just don't like every joke he does.
And to say that this is a guy who built his career on trans jokes, like that's not even remotely true. I thought that was an odd take. But he and Mulaney were both on this thing called The Hall, which was honoring the greats of stand-up, which is on Netflix.
I watched that too.
People like to theorize that comedy all comes from a place of pain and sadness. And people like to talk about comedians as if we do what we do because of some inner darkness. And this is especially thrown around when discussing Robin Williams. And with all due respect, off with that. Have a little respect for a brilliant artist who was just more talented than you. That's what was happening. Making people laugh is incredibly fun. The art form of comedy is a joy to perform, and being a comedian is not a psychiatric condition. There are depressed people who don't even have the decency to be great comedians. Why don't you pick on them for a change?
It's all kinds of depressed people who aren't funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And that Hall special is a little over an hour. They didn't make it super long. And it goes,
Is each episode about a different comedian?
No, it's not even episodes. It's one special.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, you can watch it in one sitting, no problem.
George Carlin, Joan Rivers, Richard Pryor, Robin Williams.
And they do a little in memoriam section for Louis Anderson, Norm Macdonald, Gilbert Gottfried.
Gilbert, yeah.
And Bob Saget.
Bob Saget.
I was 19. I remember I opened for him, Newark Symphony
Talking about
Hall.
Richard Pryor.
Couldn't believe that he was a legend doing a gig in Newark. Met him backstage. He remembered my name, shook my hand, and he did about 15 minutes, and he stopped talking, and he told the crowd, "I'm sorry, I just can't do this tonight." And a guy in the back stood up. He said, "I love you, Richard." The whole crowd went crazy. It was sincerely the longest ovation I've ever seen to this day in comedy. And I was a young man, but I understood that I was witnessing actual love. They just wanted to be around him one more time. And they sent him off lovely and said a great goodbye. And the moment that I saw that informed the rest of my career. I knew that's exactly what I wanted for my life, and that's exactly how I want my career to end. Well, maybe not exactly. Not in Newark.
I got to watch that. It looks good.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. It's an interesting special. Chelsea Handler does a great job talking about Joan Rivers, who is just so special and so just a badass.
Joan Rivers?
Yeah, Joan Rivers. And then, Carlin, great. Robin Williams, fantastic. Just it's really for the comedy nerds in the room, which is all of us.
So it's
pretty great.
one episode. It's like
it's
one special.
It's a special. It's an hour, like a little over an hour long. So they don't like
Oh, they
dwell
squeeze
on
a
it
lot
too
into
long.
an hour, then.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everybody's introduction is about like 7 or 8 minutes, and then they do like a little vignette of the inductee's life, and then they move on to the next person.
I see.
And who was the first person to come out? Because Jon Stewart inducted Carlin. But Pete Davidson started things off.
Okay.
So, and he's like, why am I on this? You know, his whole
Big
thing.
shift, by the way, at SNL. Bunch of
Yeah.
people left.
Yeah, I saw that.
Pete, Kate McKinnon, Kyle Mooney, Adie Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big chunk. Keenan Thompson, still hanging around.
Always will.
Oh, yeah.
He's like,
Till the day he dies.
I know what side my bread is buttered. Let me take a break. If you're on hold, I'll get you on the way back. Another chance for you to grab $1,000 on the way at 3:30, by the way. Last week for you to go fund yourself. So if you're still empty-handed, listen for these keywords. And after this break, if you want to go see A Day to Remember, they're doing a show with a bunch of good bands. July 29 down at Jacobs Pavilion. I'll get you hooked up for that.